The National Institute on Drug Abuse released a statement on Monday denying that marijuana is in fact less toxic than alcohol. Now we know that that's bullshit. Let's talk about 5 particular ways that it's bullshit. First, and perhaps most significantly, people die from alcohol use, but they don't die from marijuana use. In fact, the CDC reports that there are currently 37,000 deaths per year related to alcohol use, and that does not include accidental deaths, like falling out of your dorm room window or something like that. Now, currently, the CDC doesn't even have a category for deaths caused by marijuana. Now, yes, it's not legal, so perhaps that's one reason they don't have it. But if they did, I have a feeling they'd have a hard time tracking down many cases. And so when it comes to the most important issue of the toxicity of a drug, death, alcohol leads the way. And so I think the National Institute on Drug Abuse should take note of that. Now, one particular way that people die from drug overdoses that is in fact it, is from overdoses of the substance itself. And there are many people who die from alcohol overdoses. And when you're talking about the toxicity of a substance, the amount you need over and above the amount you need to get the benefit you want that can kill you is one great way to measure that toxicity. And in that area, alcohol is actually one of the worst substances that you can abuse. Just 10 times the amount you want to get the buzz going can in fact kill you, which among drugs that's not that much extra, and so we shouldn't be surprised that many people actually die from alcohol overdoses every single year. Now, you've probably heard thrown around the fact that you would need to consume thousands of times the marijuana you normally would to die from it. That is actually just a purely hypothetical number because there are no known instances of people overdosing from marijuana use. So from sheer number of deaths from overdoses of the substance, alcohol leading the way over marijuana in terms of how dangerous it is for you. Now, if you want to break it down in terms of monetary cost, the health-related costs associated with alcohol use far exceed those of marijuana use currently. And yes, marijuana use probably would rise if it was legalized, but we know many people across the country are already using it, and so we can compare these numbers. We've got a study here published by the British Columbia Mental Health and Addictions Journal that says the annual health-related cost of alcohol consumption is currently $165 per user compared to just $20 per user for marijuana. Now, that probably includes things like automobile accidents, which are obviously much more common when it comes to alcohol abuse rather than marijuana abuse, but also damage done to the body and the necessary health care to treat that damage. So also money. That's a significant way that alcohol use is more damaging than marijuana use. Let's turn to the brain. Alcohol use actually damages the brain. I think that you know this at this point if you took your DARE classes in elementary school. Marijuana use does not. There's the myth that it does, but studies have not been able to link marijuana use to actual killing of brain cells. And in fact, one very interesting recent study said that teens who used marijuana as well as alcohol suffered significantly less damage to the white matter in their brains. So far from actually damaging the brain, it looks like marijuana can provide some sort of safety buffer against the damaging use of alcohol in the brain. Finally, alcohol use is linked to cancer. Marijuana use is not. Now, that actually might be surprising to many of you because you'd think, well, you are smoking something, so you'd imagine that similar to smoking cigarettes, it at the very least would increase your risk of lung cancer, but that is actually not the case. In fact, one recent study conducted in 2006 by the University of California at Los Angeles found that those using marijuana had lower incidences of lung cancer than those who don't consume marijuana. I don't know exactly what leads to that result. They're still doing their preliminary research, but it's certainly interesting. And for proponents of marijuana legalization, that should be a key fact that I think you should push. Maybe not to compare it to alcohol, but certainly to compare it to cigarettes, which are, of course, legal. Now, alcohol, on the other hand, is linked to a wide variety of cancers, including cancers of the esophagus, stomach, colon, lungs, pancreas, liver, and prostate. So look, we talked about dying from overdoses of the substance itself, the cost to the user in terms of health costs from using that drug, damage to the brain, and cancer as well. Now, when the National Institute on Drug Abuse released their statement earlier this week, they did not back it up with references to many studies, and we should not be surprised by that because the studies don't exist. But I love this information coming out, and I want it to become more widespread because recently you probably saw the ad that was going to be run before a NASCAR event touting the positive health benefits of marijuana in comparison to alcohol. And many people met that with, well, that's just BS. I don't know why they're lying in their ad. But they're not actually lying. There is sound science underlying it. And I think that we do need to have that spread more because While public opinion on marijuana legalization is changing rapidly, and we saw in the last electoral cycle both Washington and Colorado legalizing marijuana for recreational use, and a couple of other states legalizing it for medicinal use, if people knew the actual health facts about marijuana, particularly in comparison to cigarettes and alcohol, I think we'd see that number changing far more rapidly.